one holy faith. The Church of the Nazarene, from its beginnings, has confessed itself to be a branch of the one, holy, universal, and apostolic Church and has sought to be faithful to it. It confesses as its own the history of the people of God recorded in the Old and New Testaments, and that same history as it has extended from the days of the apostles to our own. As its own people, it embraces the people of God through the ages, those redeemed through Jesus Christ in whatever expression of the one Church they may be found. It receives the ecumenical creeds of the first 5 Christian centuries as expressions of its own faith, while the Church of the Nazarene has responded to its special calling to proclaim the doctrine and experience of entire sanctification. It has taken care to retain and nurture identification with the historic Church in its preaching of the Word, its administration of the sacraments, its concern to raise up and maintain a ministry that is truly apostolic in faith and practice, and its inculcating of disciplines for Christ-like living in service to others, the Wesleyan revival. This Christian faith has been mediated to Nazarenes through historical religious currents and particularly through the Wesleyan revival of the 18th century. In the 1730s the broader evangelical revival arose in Britain, directed chiefly by John Wesley, his brother Charles, and George Whitefield, clergymen in the Church of England. Through their instrumentality, many other men and women turned from sin and were empowered for the service of God. This movement was characterized by lay preaching, testimony, discipline, and circles of earnest disciples known as societies, classes, and bands. As a movement of spiritual life, its antecedents included German pietism, typified by Philip Jacob Spener, 17th-century English Puritanism, and a spiritual awakening in New England described by the pastor-theologian Jonathan Edwards. The Wesleyan phase of the Great Revival was characterized by 3 theological landmarks: regeneration by grace through faith, Christian perfection, or sanctification, likewise by grace through faith, and the witness of the Spirit to the assurance of grace. Among John Wesley's distinctive contributions was an emphasis on entire sanctification in this life as God's gracious provision for the Christian. British Methodism's early missionary enterprises began disseminating these theological emphases worldwide. In North America, the Methodist Episcopal Church was organized in 1784. Its stated purpose was to reform the continent and to spread scriptural holiness over these lands. The holiness movement of the 19th century. In the 19th century, a renewed emphasis on Christian holiness began in the eastern United States and spread throughout the nation. Timothy Merritt, Methodist clergyman and founding editor of the Guide to Christian Perfection, was among the leaders of the holiness revival. The central figure of the movement was Phoebe Palmer of New York City, leader of the Tuesday meeting for the promotion of holiness, at which Methodist bishops, educators, and other clergy joined the original group of women in seeking holiness. During 4 decades, Mrs. Palmer promoted the Methodist phase of the holiness movement through public speaking, writing, and as editor of the influential Guide to Holiness. We believe in the plenary inspiration of the Holy Scriptures, by which we understand the 66 books of the Old and New Testaments, given by divine inspiration, inerrantly revealing the will of God concerning us in all things necessary to our salvation, so that whatever is not contained therein is not to be enjoined as an article of faith,